Now let's talk about the cannabis industry. We have a lot of misinformation, huge misinformation. One of the main one is to look at trichome gland color to know if your flower is at the peak of the flowering cycle. If you look at botany, the flowering cycle is part of the main metabolism of the plant. However, the trichome gland are not. The trichome gland are protuberance made by the plant to protect itself or to capture pollen. It has nothing to do with the main metabolism of the plant by itself. So the color of the gland, even less. But the amount of resin formed inside the resin gland is totally dependent on the flowering cycle. The closer you are to the peak of the flowering cycle, the more resin there is in that gland. So there is a relation, but it's not the relation people look at. If you grow a genetic indoor, if you grow that genetic in a greenhouse, in a shade sun ground, or in full sun, that same genetic harvested at the peak of the harvest time will give you the same amount of resin inside the resin gland, but the color is going to be radically different. Okay? The coloring of the trichome gland is dependent only of the intensity of the light and the size on the genetic. So it's like already the main belief of grower, especially indoor, is if you look at the botany of the plant, it's not even logical to look at trichome gland to tell you the peak of the flower. It's like when you grow tomato, you don't look at the trichome, which are really beautiful on the tomato plant. You look at the tomato, any plant you grow, you look at the end product. You don't look at a separate part of the metabolism to tell you if the main is, you know what I mean? So it's like questioning what we do. You need the science. When I came to America, I had for 20 years collected resin on my hand in many countries, in many different ways. I didn't know what was a trichome gland. I had never seen a trichome gland. I was calling that pollen. I was totally ignorant of the product I was working with while I knew the tool. But if you're a craftsman, there is two things in your life. There is first the product, because the product defines the tool you're going to use to do whatever you want with that product. So then started the journey. What is a trichome gland? And then it's like, wow, the trichome gland is a big deal in the plant kingdom. The plant kingdom can make 200,000 organic compounds in those trichome glands. From the most deadly to the most beneficial, everything in between. Like it's the summum of alchemy. Then it's like, okay, wow. So what about the cannabis trichome? Oh, okay, the cannabis plant can literally pick up two toxic compounds that are the most common in the plant kingdom, terpene and phenol, and outside from those two toxic compounds, she can biosynthesize 150 plus medicinal compounds. It's like, yo, that's something. Then I wanted to know, so how the fuck does it happen? You know what I mean? And I don't have the IQ to understand the chemical reaction behind, but I understand the step of progression. So then I wanted to know, okay, so how does the cannabinoid form into each other? And then CBGA, la. Then knowing that, now I can make pure CBDH because I can transform THC. So even if you have a little THCA in your 52% CBD hash, well, I can make it CBN all day long and hardly change the, now I don't just make hash. I can make different hash with different psychoactive and medicinal power. It's like, it's another ball game. And then the biggest problem is, how do you know when your gland, how do you get full melt? Okay, full melt is how much resin is formed inside the resin gland. The more resin formed, the more melty it is. Okay, but the color and the size cannot tell you. You're fucked. Basically, you need to be able to look inside to be able to see. And then I came on a paper that really blew me, where I discovered that actually a resin gland is attached to the stalk by an abscission. An abscission is what holds a fruit, a leaf to the branch. That means that the riper the gland is, become, the smaller the abscission is. When the gland is totally ripe, it just falls.
Yeah.
Dude,
Wow.
it is different now. Now I'm not looking at a plant where I cannot see what the fuck I want. Now I can look at a fruit tree. My perspective is different. So how do I get the ripest fruit from a fruit tree? Well, I would go smell and touch. Okay, but I want quantity, I cannot do that. So then, if I shake just a tiny bit, I get the ripest fruit. And then I shake a little bit stronger, and I get that second dimension of ripeness. And a third time and a fourth time, and every one of those shakes, it's a dimension of ripeness of the whole tree. Doesn't matter the color, doesn't matter the size, those glands were attached pair with that much abscission to their stalk. This gave me the ability to tell you to the day how early or how late you harvest your plant.